Our baby monitor unveiled a truth I never saw coming, exposing my wife's betrayal in excruciating high definition. I'm a 35-year-old man, married for nearly 7 years to a woman I believed was my partner in every sense of the word. Let's call her Naomi. We met at a local fair, and from the moment I asked her out, things just clicked. Ours was a relationship I cherished, filled with laughter, love, and a shared dream for the future. Of course, we had our ups and downs, but they were ordinary challenges, nothing we couldn't handle. For a long time, we chose to enjoy our youth, postponing the idea of starting a family. But last year, we decided to take that leap. When Naomi got pregnant and gave birth to our daughter earlier this year, my world changed forever. Holding my baby for the first time was indescribable, a moment of pure joy etched into my soul. But as any parent will tell you, adjusting to this new life was no small feat. Parenthood devours your time, your energy, your freedom. And with no dependable family nearby and a nanny out of our budget, we were left juggling the demands of this beautiful, chaotic new chapter alone. One evening, the constraints of our new normal began to weigh on me. I thought, what if we could carve out just a sliver of spontaneity? The idea of getting a baby monitor struck me. It wasn't perfect, but if the baby was asleep and we stayed within a 5-minute walk, we could enjoy a short outing and still rush back if needed. When I broached the idea, Naomi hesitated, worried about leaving our daughter alone. I reassured her, promising we'd stay close, and though we didn't finalize the plan, I thought she'd come around eventually. Naomi runs a flower shop at the corner of our street, a passion project brought to life by a property I inherited from my late uncle. She poured her creativity into it, and it thrived. Though she didn't work every day, she was often at the shop. Meanwhile, I worked remotely, which let me stay home with our daughter. On a whim, I ordered a Wi-Fi-enabled baby monitor online, convinced it would help us find that elusive balance. When the device arrived, Naomi was at work. I set it up in our baby's room, a discreet little camera connected to an app on my phone. The technology was impressive, allowing me to check the feed from anywhere. In my excitement, I forgot to mention it to Naomi when she returned home. The next day, Naomi asked me to take our daughter along while I ran errands. She seemed exhausted and desperate for a break. Though disappointed, I'd hoped for a rare solo outing. I agreed, wanting to support her. My daughter and I set off, ticking tasks off my list. Everything was going smoothly until lunchtime, when I parked my car to enjoy a quick meal. Then it happened. A notification lit up my phone. The baby monitor detected activity in the nursery. My first thought? Naomi must have gone in to check something. Curious but unworried, I opened the app. What I saw turned my blood to ice. Naomi was in the baby's room, but she wasn't alone. A man stood with her, their bodies locked together in an intimate embrace. For a moment, my heart raced with fear. Was she being attacked? But the sounds, those undeniable sounds, shattered that illusion. They weren't struggling. They were embracing. My wife and this stranger, in our daughter's room. I couldn't look away, paralyzed by disbelief. My mind screamed, how could she? Then rage boiled over. I hit the record button, capturing their betrayal as the man's hands roamed under her blouse and she leaned into him. When he bent her over the crib meant for our child, I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the phone aside, trembling with fury. My baby, thankfully oblivious in her car seat, was the only reason I didn't drive home and confront him right then. My mind churned with questions. Is this why she wanted me out of the house? Has this happened before? Hours passed in a blur. By the time my daughter woke, most of my errands were undone. I completed one last task, needing some semblance of normalcy to ground me. Returning home, Naomi greeted me with concern, asking why I was late. I lied, brushing it off with a casual excuse. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my rage burned too hot. I couldn't trust myself to speak. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I sat in the living room, consumed by betrayal. The baby monitor, the unwitting witness to her infidelity, was now my lifeline. The next day, she noticed it. I played it cool, telling her I'd only just bought it, hiding the storm brewing inside me. But every time I look at her, I see them. I hear her laughter, her moans, in our baby's room. 2 days have passed, and I'm at my breaking point. I have the evidence. I have the anger. But how do I confront the woman I thought I knew? How do I handle this betrayal without losing myself in the process? Decisions. In moments like these, logic feels like a distant memory, drowned out by the raging sea of emotions. I find myself in no position to think clearly, let alone act rationally. My mind is a battlefield, every thought fueled by anger and betrayal. So, I turn to others for clarity, seeking advice, even criticism. Call me a fool if you must, but I need to avoid acting on impulse. All right, perhaps I am a fool for not rushing home the moment I discovered the truth. Many of you have pointed this out, and you're not wrong. But let me explain. I wasn't ready, mentally or emotionally, to face my wife and the man she invited into our lives in the most revolting way imaginable. And then, there was my daughter. She was with me, her innocent presence tethering me to sanity. Could I have brought her into a confrontation like that? Could I risk the chaos spiraling into something dangerous? No. My daughter kept me grounded, stopped me from making a mistake that could have harmed us both. The consensus is clear now, it's time to confront her. I can't hold this inside anymore. Tomorrow morning, it ends. There's no point in prolonging this agony. Some of you have suggested snooping through her phone, but that's not my style. Besides, she guards it like a lifeline. Instead, I'll confront her head-on. No theatrics, no games, just the truth laid bare. Isn't it ironic? Parenthood throws us curveballs, but nothing prepares you for this. A baby monitor, designed to ensure your child's safety, becomes the harbinger of betrayal. Catching her, with him, in our daughter's room of all places, it's like a cruel plot twist in a thriller I never signed up for. A nursery should exude warmth, exhaustion, maybe even the sweet scent of baby powder, not the sordid stench of infidelity. How did we get here? Update, the confrontation happened, and I'm still reeling. It's a strange mix, relief from finally unburdening myself, yet profound pain from reliving the betrayal. Here's how it unfolded. That morning, after Naomi woke up, I let her settle for about an hour before I asked her to sit down. The unease was visible on her face as she repeatedly asked if something was wrong. I didn't respond, letting her stew in her own anxiety. I began by mentioning the baby monitor, when I bought it, how it had been operational that day I ran errands. Confusion clouded her expression. Silence. I said nothing more, just watched her, waiting for the realization to hit. And then, it did. Her eyes widened, her body jolted slightly, and her hand flew to her mouth in shock. She sat frozen like that, covering her mouth, for what felt like an eternity. I could see the gears turning in her head, scrambling for an explanation. But I wasn't going to give her the chance to craft a lie. Why did you cheat on me with that guy? I asked, my voice cold and steady. Her response? Tears. Unintelligible blubbering through sobs. I repeated the question, and she dissolved into the same mess. No excuses. No answers. Just guilt, laid bare. I pressed on. Who is he? She cried louder, her sobs grating against my patience. For 10 excruciating minutes, this went on before she finally calmed enough to speak. He's nobody important, she stammered. Nobody important? He was important enough to get into your panties, I shot back. Her response was almost laughable in its absurdity. He was just some guy who came by the store. He wanted to buy flowers for his, she trailed off, but I knew the word. Wife. That word hit like a sledgehammer. Not only had she betrayed me, but she had stooped so low as to consort with another married person. Disgust. That's the only word for what I felt. His name? I demanded. She hesitated, tried to lie, but I wasn't having it. Eventually, she mumbled his name. Let's call him John Carpenter. A unique name, one I committed to memory with razor-sharp clarity. My final question was the one that burned the most. Why in our daughter's room? Do you have no morals? Her silence spoke volumes. And then, she said something so absurd, so infuriating, it nearly pushed me over the edge. You didn't even ask me about buying the baby monitor, she accused. The audacity. So now this is my fault? I erupted. If I hadn't bought the monitor, you'd still be sneaking around, defiling our daughter's room? I'm the villain because you were cheating on me with a married man? Pathetic. Her sobs returned, but this time, they gave me some grim satisfaction. For now, I've kicked Naomi out. Divorce is inevitable, but it doesn't feel like enough. I need her to feel the pain she inflicted on me. Suggestions? I'm open. Final update, months later, I'm finally free. Happiness feels strange but welcome, like sunlight after a storm. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's a story of reclaiming my life. She told me it would be useful for the trial, the fact that she had to ask me to take care of the baby that day. To me, it was clear, she had orchestrated the whole thing, and her audacity suggested this wasn't her first betrayal. When the divorce papers were finally ready, I made a deliberate choice. I gave her work address for service, the very corner shop I'd generously let her use for her business. Why? Because I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I wasn't there to witness her reaction, but the thought of her being served in front of her customers? Deliciously poetic. That same day, my phone rang. Her voice was desperate, pleading to talk things over. But what was there to say? More apologies I didn't want to hear? I shut her down. When the divorce proceedings began, her lawyer went straight for the jugular, the store. Ownership had passed to me when my uncle died, making it the most valuable asset we had. We didn't own much, a modest car, a rented apartment, but the store was the crown jewel. It was clear to everyone, including the judge. My lawyer, an absolute powerhouse, laid it all out. She didn't just highlight Naomi's infidelity, she painted the full picture, premeditation, betrayal, and the likelihood this wasn't her first time. Rewarding her with the store, she argued, would condone her behavior and set a terrible precedent. In the end, I got what mattered most. The store was mine. I relinquished the car since I kept the apartment, a practical compromise for co-parenting logistics. Custody was shared, not ideal, but manageable. Thankfully, my state recognized her infidelity as a significant factor, sparing me from paying her a dime. And then came the part where I truly began to heal. Remember John Carpenter? The man she cheated with? It took me all of 2 minutes to find him on Facebook and even less time to locate his wife. I reached out, explaining everything, every sordid detail, and offered proof, explicit footage of her husband with my wife. At first, she didn't believe me. But when I sent the evidence, the truth hit her like a freight train. Consoling her wasn't easy, but there was something cathartic about it. From what I can tell, their marriage is now teetering on the edge. It's poetic justice. As for Naomi, she had 30 days to vacate the store. I told her in person, months after the divorce, just when she thought she'd gotten comfortable again. The tears flowed, and she even offered to pay rent. But I refused. Making her my tenant? Never. My goal was clear, her beloved shop would cease to exist. Sure, she could try to rebuild elsewhere, but it wouldn't be easy, or cheap. Now, the store stands empty, waiting for a tenant who can actually pay. Naomi's Instagram still claims the shop is closed for renovations, but we both know that's a lie. It's a facade, a desperate attempt to save face. She's called me 3 times this month, begging for forgiveness and another chance at the store. Each time, my answer is the same, no. For the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of peace. It's bittersweet that my happiness came through revenge, but life doesn't always grant us neat resolutions. Watching her feel even a fraction of the pain she caused me? That's its own kind of closure. Naomi thought she could play me, but in the end, the game was mine to win.